This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this. Boom! How's it going? Niiamah Ashong here. That boom was more for me, like exploded and bringing me into this space here. I'm Niiamah Ashong, founder of Outliers Edge, where we champion the leaders who are shaping humanity. Let me restate that. We're championing the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. And the next era part is very important because there are phenomenal leaders right now who are shaping humanity into something slightly better than what it is right now. When I think about the outliers that we play with the people who choose to come into this space, they own a vision of a future that is far beyond and what we're currently experiencing. And the reason that this is important is because it's like I can't expect the people who've lived a life similar to everyone else to come up with anything that would look drastically different. But us outliers, we've lived a life on the edge. We've lived a life on the edge of what other people have experienced. And now we can bring in more of our experiences, more of what we have to offer, and actually, in a very natural way, change and shape and augment and uplift the way that we all choose to be and live with each other. So I'm glad I had that slip up at the beginning here, because it actually calls out that part that really matters, the next era, I also lead the World Joy movement, where we focus on finding solutions that are infused with joy as opposed to violence. How we can come together and bring solutions to the table to create possibilities that uplift people as opposed to breaking down people over and over and over again. Right. So today we get to be in conversation with a phenomenal outlier, someone I've known for a number of years, and who's found a way to both reinvent himself multiple times, but also consistently level up his game. I get excited to be in conversation right now, especially because I know some of what he's doing right now, and just seeing both his journey and also where he's choosing to focus on making his efforts really, 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 really widespread. Just it inspires me and it excites me. So today I would like to introduce you to someone important in my world, Paul Ken. Paul, it's great to be in space with you today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, my friend. I mean, Niiamah, I have so much respect for you for what you're up to. I think me and Niiamah, we met quite a while back, a few years back, and just your energy is very unlike anybody else I've ever met. So I'm just happy to be in this space with you today, my friend, and I'm excited for our conversation and see what we get to create together.
Yeah, I am as well. So I as we're talking, one of the things I like to do is just root myself back into who am I actually talking to. And I remember the first time we met, and what I remember, I have a visual of you in my mind, and what I feel is there's a lot of power and punch from this individual, right? You have a way of making your presence known without necessarily being in the center, but it's like a powerful undulating element to you. You have a lot of energy yourself. So I real energy, recognize energy. I get that. And on top of that, though, I really have seen you over the years, continue to actually walk a line of both doing the deeper work, increasing your power, and choosing to show up and display that power visibly. I think it's one thing to go through these processes and have it have happen behind the scenes, but you've chosen to consistently make sure that your views are out in the world. I know you recently did a TED talk. You're not someone that's playing in the shadows around this stuff here, and I can see the impact that it's having. The impact that it has on me, the impact that has happened that I can see through the channels that I see you on. And I get excited to talk to you more about the impact that's happening with your clients and where you're taking things from there, while also just being real with you, Paul. I just really care about you too. So I just want to make sure we don't lose you in the mix of all the other things we're going to talk about. I'm glad to be in space with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, I'm just like, man, I need to put that somewhere so that I can play that for myself every morning to amp me up. So I really appreciate that in terms of the respect and admiration is very much coming from me as well. So yeah, I'm excited, man, for this conversation and excited to be
Yeah.
in the space with you.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like as we're talking, I have a picture of like the animated Lion King, and it's just like, remember who you are, you know?
I
So
love the
it's like,
Lion King.
yeah,
Love it.
yeah. So Paul, I've shared a bit about like who you've been to me and how I see you. I want to give you a chance right now to speak about yourself here. You know, share with us like who you are in the world, both professionally and personally, and then we'll take things off from there.
Yeah, that question is so interesting about who you are. I remember that conversation back then, actually, when we met, and we were both actually at the same mastermind together with Rich Litvin. And I remember that was the very first time where I got exposed to the concept of introduce yourself. How do you introduce yourself as who you are and not for what you do? And for so long, I just had this title around, this is my title at work. But I think over the years, I've really learned to be on this journey of discovering who I am and playing with how do I show the world that. So, when you ask that question, I'm like, man, where do I start? I think when you ask me who I am, I think at the very core of who I am is someone who lives life in a way where I don't color within the lines. And I think that has been a very core theme through line of my life. And I go back to when I was growing up, I was in the epitome of the space of you got to fit in a box and color within a line, Catholic, conservative, Christian household. And I knew from the very beginning there was something very different about me. I was that kid that just had a lot to say. I was loud. I liked to amplify what I thought. And it was just really not celebrated. And it's just been this coming home for me since we've met, and even just before that, of learning to reclaim that and bring that into what I do today. And so when I think about what I do, and I constantly am in, number one, I would say, discoverer of possibility. I constantly am pushing the edge for what is possible for me and what is possible for life. I still remember when we first met, I was right in between the cusp of leaving my corporate job. I came up with this idea of myself growing up of I got to have the corporate job and work up the corporate ladder and have the white picket fence. And, that's the dream life with the house and 2.5 kids, and realizing that that was a horizon that I thought was the horizon. If anything, actually, it was a limitation for what is even possible beyond that. And I think I've just constantly be pushing the line of that, of what if life wasn't that way? What if it could be different? And it's been a big part of my journey. And I think about what I'm doing today, it's really been pushing the boundaries constantly. So, what I'm waking up every single day, I'm constantly questioning, is there a different way? And I think it goes all the way back to when I was at a point in my life where I think where it all really started was when I discovered 13 years ago that I was a transgender man. And I'm like, what does that even mean? I didn't even know that existed up until now. And number three is what is possible for me at this choice point. And I remember very clearly at that moment when I was seeking support from people around me who had been through the journey, it was a constant narrative of you're going to lose everything in your life. You're going to lose people. You're going to lose your job. Are you willing to pay the price of losing everything and everyone in your life? And I sat there and I looked at all these stories of poverty, and I looked at all these stories of people being ostracized and rejected and living this life that, yes, they are free on the outside, but have lost everything in pursuit of that. And I asked myself, is there another way? Could it be possible that it doesn't have to be one or the other? And I think that was the day that, yes, I was willing to lose everything in my life in order to live a life where I was authentic to who I was. But at the same time, living my life every day with that in mind of What if it can be different than the narrative that I'm presented with? And so I think that's why today I'm in a space of pushing a new boundary again of, yes, coming into right now I'm serving the hospitality industry with a lot of restaurants that traditionally don't think about people as their core asset. They think about the food on the plate. They think about the dining experience. They think about the ambiance. They think about the design of the restaurant. Even when you think about Food Network, what's it focused on? The food. You think about Gordon Ramsay going in, he's picking apart the food and what isn't working from those standpoints. But have we ever looked at what is not working from the standpoint of how we treat people, especially within the hospitality industry, where it's viewed as a entry level, pay minimum wage, and it's kind of like get in and stay with it or get out. But the tables have turned. We're in a turning tide right now of people finally standing up and saying enough is enough. And so I'm coming in as a disruptor in that industry of, I think people, instead of plates coming for people, it's now a time where we get to think about the restaurant business as people before plates. And so I'm coming in as a disruptor. I'm coming in as someone who is curious. I'm coming in as someone who is asking the hard questions around where do we get to go so that we get to focus on the most important asset in your business, which is actually not your food, but actually the people that are serving the food, the people that are running your business, and what could be possible if we completely changed the way that industry looked and the way that they developed their talent, the way that they brought out the best in their people, instead of only bringing out the best in their food.
All right, Paul. So what we're going to do here, right? I love everything that came up here. We're going to unpack some of these things, right? Because it's great to hear like how you're making an impact here now and pushing the boundaries and like calling outside the lines in various ways in the work that you do. And I can imagine like just you being just so well practiced in this over the years, like how you're bringing in some really disruptive ideas in different ways, like really, really disruptive ideas for your clients and such. I want to come back to that in a bit. And you gave us a number of different components and just like sharing who you are. That I'm like, if we miss this here, we would have like, we'll miss you. Right. And so I want to make sure we keep it, because it's what I get about you already is that like I don't know, like you said, like I'm coming in to disrupt. I'm like, you're just coming into Paul, you know, just like and it just so happens that the way that Paul looks at the world and operates in the world like disrupts how everyone else was looking at it beforehand. I took a human design which is took a human design, I don't know, chart thing. It looks at I'm not the best person to describe human design, but I know it was based on the date of time that I was born, like where I was born, so on and so forth. And they're like, okay, this is how like all the gates in the world were like lined up, and this is kind of like what was imprinted with you. If you're a human design expert, like feel free to like make that better. If I get comments and things about this later on, I'm like, great, I'm glad you listened to the episode. I hope the human design part is what really like stuck out for you. But one of the things that comes out there is I have a left angle cross of distraction, and I read it. And even just seeing the name of it really felt great for me. I read more into it, and what I have taken away from it is like ultimately like I'm here to distract. And when I was young, that was bright colors, like loud paisley shirts or loud like shirts that I got from like just like I imagine one with like clouds on it. I had this one that was just like diamond upon diamond upon diamond upon diamond. And as that has gone on through my life, I've actually been able to up level what distraction happens to be, right? It's part of the reason why I'm so powerful as a coach, because all I'm ever doing is distracting people from what they think needs to be done and get them onto the path that actually has what it is that they're looking for. I'm like, you have too much traction on something that isn't serving you. So let's like distract you there, like pull out that traction so we can get you where you need to be. And when you talk a bit about like the disrupting element, I feel like there's that kind of natural sense to you where there's like you're like, I color out of the lines. Like I'm not in boxes. I'm like, and when you enter an industry, when you enter a time with clients, when people spend time with you, even here on this podcast, you find ways of like, you're just being, and all of a sudden like whatever we thought the boxes was just like gets disintegrated. Like when you walk into the room, you're like, and I hear music being played like synthesizers at the same time. Like, I have to figure out how to like get some of that in here, like in post audio stuff, right? But I just feel like that's you and how you show up, and it's not done in a way that is like immature. And I think that's important. Like, I get the maturity behind what it is that you do. Like you know how to disrupt, how to bring in, how to color out the lines in a way where people, it's almost like art on a wall where it's like it looks like people have just been flicking at it, and it's like, look, if I flicked at something on a canvas, I would not be able to sell it for like what the artists are doing, you know. I get that sense from you here. So we're going to go back into a bit more about like who you are in a bit, but let me pause with that just so we can riff off this for a little bit. How true is that? What resonates with you? What feels like, wait a minute, you missed one nuance that's really important?
I think there was so much in what you just said there. And I think to your point, I love what you said about the human design, because I got my human design done a couple of years ago, and it was a total game changer for me, because I think one of the best things you could do for yourself is really get to know yourself. And I think that is something that is really missed when we think about all the things that we're always seeking to learn, that it's outside of us. Like we're seeking books and we're seeking knowledge and we're seeking wisdom, but there's so much to learn from within us. And I think that is one of the most powerful journeys you can ever go on, is to really, really get to know yourself on a deep level.
Yeah,
and
I call
it's
that
really
like owning your outlier. It's like going through that process of like this is me, and like knowing that and being able to see that fully, you know? Yeah.
And I think that part about the disruptor part, the funny thing about recognizing that I naturally like to disrupt status quo, is that what is your gift is also often your biggest challenge as well to overcome. And I think the thing I want to pause on and make sure that I talk about, because it's very easy to look at someone and say, it comes so easy to you, I'm just not like that. But the aspect that people don't see is the journey that you had to go on in order to get there. I spent most of my life, like literally 30 years of my life, trying not to be a disruption. I wanted to be everything but disruptive. I wanted so badly to fit in as a kid. And even in my adult years, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to be quote unquote normal like everyone else. I really didn't want to cause ripples. The challenging thing about that is that when it is naturally not authentic to you, even if you want it so bad, there is something that feels off. There's something that feels like you're constantly fighting with yourself. And I think that is part of that journey that we go on, of discovering who we are, discovering the parts of us that are who we actually are, and to learn to stop resisting that, and learning about which are the parts that are really characters that we take on, or facades that we put on that we think are us, but it's really what we put on so that we can fit in the environment that we're in. And what I want to highlight there is that it was a 30-year plus journey for me to get to a place to own that I naturally like to disrupt status quo, because I've done that in my own life. And I've done that in the spaces that I've been in. And it was very jarring for me, because I wanted to be not disruptive. But I realized the more I tried to not be who I was, the more I tried to push against it, the more it tried to bring me back tenfold, to have me see it and look it in the face until it was going to, hit me over the head like a 2x4 to finally say, this is who you are. This is what you're up to. Instead of resist it, make it work for you. So I'm really in this space now of learning to be in relationship with it instead of resisting it. But at the same time, it is still my journey every single day. Some days I wake up, I'm like, man, I just wish like life would be actually so much easier if I wasn't this way, if I was totally okay with going with the flow. But at the same time, often our purpose isn't easy. Our calling isn't easy. And I think it's the ones that say, you know what, I'm going to summon the courage to not do what's easy, but to do what's fulfilling, to do what calls me inside. That's where the magic starts happening. That's when we start creating the amazing stuff.
Yeah, Paul, like when you say this, it takes me, because firstly, just thank you for being real about this, right? Because it's always a balance I'm trying to find where it's like, look, I think being an outlier is one of the most amazing things you can do. I think it gives you a competitive edge. And most people think that being an outlier is a problem because you're not like everyone else. And so we spend a lot of our time dimming ourselves in, pulling back, holding it in there. I'm like, do not forget the edge that it gives you. Do not forget what, like, but it also takes you to edges. And I love that, like, I often talk about like the double edge of being an outlier. It's like, yes, you're a disruptor, but it also works like there's another side of it that's pointing back at you.
100%.
If you're not, you know? Yeah. So I appreciate you calling this in, because otherwise it gets into like this kind of airy, like authenticity talk of like, just be you. And it's like, that's not how it actually works. Like, you know how hard it is to like be you. It's like, in my mind, one of the single hardest things to do. It is easier to just do to focus on the externals and never have to confront what is actually with you with every breath that you take
100%
than doing that. So just thank you for calling that in. Right. I want to stay with the flow with where we are. We might come back again to some of the things you said earlier, but like I want to stay with the flow you said right now, which is one of the last things you said was something about like making it work for you, you know? And that really feels important, right? Because I talk to people and I have a framework in my mind that typically is like negative, neutral, positive. Right? Negative, neutral, positive. And there's like a frame that I see like most things. And most of the times I talk to people, they'll come in with something negative, and then like they'll feel complete when they get to like neutral. They're like, oh, this thing about me isn't a thing, isn't a good thing, but oh wait, maybe I can just accept it, or maybe I'll just surrender to it, which is great. You know, it's a totally different space there. But what gets me is I think people often leave, but like they leave the positive out of the mix. And that's one of the things that really excites me about what you're saying. It's subtle, but it's tremendous. Like, it's like, oh, you've gotten so close. Like, if you just took 2 more steps, you would be able to have access to all of this, you know? So it's the difference between, I get it, I disrupt, like, I'm not going to apologize for it, but like, you know, I get it, to now I want to make it work for me. You know, and I get really curious about that, because as you were talking, what was coming to my mind was like, it's hard. Like I feel like we're put on this earth to go through the difficult journey, because where we start and where we end are so different, you know? But I can honestly see for you a very, very easy life where people come out of their way and they're like, so I hear you're the disruptor, you know? And they're like, so here goes the thing. My company is chaos. My restaurant is chaos. My kitchen's chaos. Like, no one gets along with each other, this on the other. Like, I need you to come disrupt the crap out of that so that we can actually get to calm, you know? Whereas most people would think that like, oh, everything must be calm, so like he's going to come in and like toss things up and make it all chaos. It's like, no. This gets to work in every way possible, you know? So tell me a little bit more about like making it work for you and the transition that's involved there, because there's something really, you know, when someone's gone on the journey, when they know that like what it took for them to get to where they are. And so I just would love to talk about like how you've gone from just like the neutral part of it and just accepting that you're a disruptor to actually saying like, no, this is why I do what I do. This is why I'm working in this industry. This is why people pay me what they pay me. This is why people like to hang out with me, so on and so forth.
You know, I love what you brought up about how you bring your clients through this model, right? We come in as negative, there's neutral, and then there's positive. And what I got out of that, what I started thinking about when you were saying that, is that there is 2 sides of the coin for every single thing. And when we only look at one side of the coin for what it is, and even when you talked about like the middle, what I was thinking about was like literally the coin, like standing in the middle. but then you don't get to see what's on the other side, but it's all the same coin is what I want to drive home. And what was a game changer for me is that often when you look at the narrative that we have in culture and social media, if you look at like a lot of the self-development, call it sound bites, it talks a lot about good habits and bad habits. It talks about good traits and bad traits. And it talks a lot about getting rid of stuff, right? Yeah. We want to change ourselves. We want to get rid of the bad parts of us. We want to let go of it, and we want to never see it ever again. The most game-changing advice I ever got and the wisdom that I got from this one mentor of mine, as she said, here's actually the secret, is that it never goes away. Yeah. It's a part of you. You can't get rid of a part of you, because what happens is that you're cutting off half of your potential. You're cutting half of your talents. You're cutting half of what you bring to the table. Good or bad is a matter of perspective. And when you stop resisting it and trying to get rid of it, what you can do instead is be in relationship with it. Because if you don't be in relationship with it and all you do is try to push it away, you're also getting rid of what it can bring to work for you. Here's a case in point. For a lot of my life, I made anger wrong because I was very afraid of my anger. I had this anger that would just come up like a fire when I come up against certain situations. And I grew up in an environment where anger was something I was trying to avoid. Like my dad was angry a lot for like reasons that we couldn't figure out at that time. And so when I started realizing that I had a very similar trait, it scared me. I wanted to get rid of it. So I pushed it down. I would try to diffuse. I would get to neutral state, like what you were saying. But what I didn't realize is that you can't get rid of just one emotion. When you get rid of an emotion, you get rid of all emotions, which means that you also get rid of the opposite side, which is the joy and the excitement and the adventure and the bliss and all of that comes with it. You can't just get rid of one and expect to still have everything else. It doesn't work like that. So what ended up happening was I flatlined my emotions. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't joyful. So I just ended up in this gray zone of nothingness, of emptiness. But what I realized that was a game changer was that the flip side of anger is actually passion. It's the same energy. What do you want to do with that energy? So when you are looking at something as only working against you and you want to get rid of it, guess what? You get rid of the anger, you get rid of your passion, you get rid of your fire. You can have fire work for you. But when you don't know how to be in relationship with that fire, you make it wrong. And then you lose out on the gift that it can be in your life. So it's been this journey for myself to learn to be in relationship with the parts of me that I've made wrong all my life. And so for those people that are listening in, often we have a dialogue around what are the good parts of us and what are the bad parts of us. But what if instead of looking at it as just black and white of what's good and bad, you can look at the part that are quote unquote bad and see what's on the flip side of that quote unquote bad trait. And how can you turn it into something that works for you? It's just like nervousness. Nervousness on the flip side is the same energy as excitement. It's just how you want to interpret it. So for me, I look at it in all areas of my life like that. Like, for example, we have this also very popular kind of perception of all of the successful people wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. in the morning, and they're getting ahead of everyone. If you want to be successful, you got to get up early in the morning. You got to get stuff done early because you got to get ahead. I made myself wrong. I'm not a morning person. I am a night owl. I work best like late afternoon to late evening. And so whenever I talk about myself, I made that wrong. I'd be like, man, I feel like I wasn't productive all day long. And now I'm getting to a place and I'm just getting started. And I would spend so much time beating myself up, making myself wrong for all the things that I didn't do like everybody else. And when I started switching that and looking at the patterns of, okay, actually, that's just when I work best. That's when I'm most productive. When people are resting, I'm going, it's just kind of like, that's just how I work. And when I stopped making that wrong, I started making my schedule work for me. So instead, I do the stuff in the morning that, I know I'm not productive for work, but I do the other things that are quote unquote hard. I'll go work out. I'll go for a walk. I'll spend time with my son. Then I will arrange my schedule so that when I know I'm in that peak hour where I have the most energy, where I'm most creative, I'll actually do work. And instead of making myself wrong, I look at it as what does my schedule look like, and what am I focused on, and what am I actually accomplishing in those different hours, and looking at productivity and call quote unquote success or achievements in a different way. I'm just focused on different things. I'm operating in a different gear. So I think it's really important to learn to be in relationship with that. I think it's a lifelong relationship that you get to develop, but so much magic when you start turning the perspective from working against it, cutting it off, to, hey, let's be in a relationship together.
So let's be in a relationship right here. Like I love what you're bringing into this space. And one of the things that really struck me is like when you get rid of an emotion, you get rid of all emotion. It really struck me there. I most people see me as a joyful person, and my relationship to anger, like it just non-existent. I still am like not all that well versed in anger. It's just like, well, let me say this: not well versed in violence from anger. Like when I get angry, I get active. I get not like I don't go hit the gym. I'm like, oh, like let's go solve this, or like I it fuels actually a lot of joy from me in different ways, right? And like so, as you're saying this, it really strikes me. I have a part of my year that I deem outrageous October. All right. And I love outrageous October. It fits really well for me as someone who's like willing to. I push the boundaries. I've always fit out. I stopped fitting in very early, but I chose to fit out, which is not the same as belonging, right? It's just like, oh, he's the guy he's that guy. I was that guy for so many different people, right? I still am in a lot of different ways, but now I'm learning how do I want to yield that. It's why I can make a podcast like the way that I do, or I show up the way I do. I'm like, I don't mind being that guy for you. That's okay. It's why people pay me. It's why my audience is this. It's why people like there's a global movement that's taking place, the World Joy Movement, right? It's like because I can be that guy, but there's a component of it that outrageous October really like lights me up. I'm like, oh, this is so easy, But when I think about it, I slow down. I'm like, wait, in the word outrageous is like the word outrage. And in the word outrage is rage. So like underneath all this here, like that, like rage to me is one of the 4 words that I know about anger. I'm like anger, mad, fury, rage, and it became a thing where like someone came to me. It's like, if you don't know your anger, how can you possibly take on the type of transformations, the type of global change that you're looking to take on? And it made sense to me most when I thought about outrageous, right? Because I'm like, it might be I'm intense, so it might feel like a lot if I'm outraged at you, if I'm bringing my rage to one individual. But when it comes to putting my attention to a mission toward the world, if I'm not outraged by the way that like people are treated, by the way like the standards that we have, by the way that like people show up in like out of integrity in different places, I'm not outraged by like if that isn't actually showing up for me, then how can I possibly come at it with enough outrageous effort to actually make a difference? And I feel some of that and what you're saying here, like along this lines here, where it's like, I can't actually achieve outrageous if I'm not willing to be outraged, and like and it's those components, especially some of the things that we want to take on, so when you talk about like flatlining there and losing out on the benefits beyond what you think, it's not like, oh, there's it takes me to this moment of like, it's not just like being angry for the sake of anger, which has its own place, but it's like there's some things that can be accessed very wonderfully through every channel, and if you can find that, if you can harness that properly and apply it toward like goals that are begging for it, it like there's a lot of opportunity there. So I want to riff on this with you here. This is something I want to kind of get your take on this from both your experiences. Do you have any other stories? Bring them in. But like, what comes for you when I say this?
No revolution, no transformation ever happened without outrage. I don't think in the history of ever there's been a revolution because of vanilla, because of nothing, because of just peace and calmness. It's just like
My
nothing
life is
happening.
great. So
yeah,
let's
and
just
life
like
is great. Let's start revolution.
Yeah.
Never in the history of ever has any transformation, change, revolution happened because of, like you said, because of everything being peace, quiet, and still and calm. It came from a place. It came from a place of, like you said, outrage around things need to change. What's happening right now is not working. It can't work any longer. And I think it has a lot to do with where you direct it, where are you channeling it, and what is your intention for what you're creating. See, there are certain people, anger itself. I love what you talked about being neutral. Anger itself can be a neutral thing. As in, it's not good or bad. It's about where you take it, what you do with it. What's the intention of what you're creating with it? You can take anger and have it be destructive. You can have anger and have it be constructive. You can have anger be the thing that is the catalyst for true change that is revolutionary and really changes people's lives for the better, because you can have it be channeled into a movement, like you said. You can have it channeled into transformation of an entity, of a business, of a entire space. You can have it also be disruptive. You can have it to create trauma. You can have it just be just lashing out, just to express anger, just to feel better or have a place to put it on people. One thing that was really powerful that one of my mentors shared with me was, she said, it's okay to be angry. Just don't be angry on people. You can be angry, just not on people. That's not okay to put it on people. So I think it's really important around what's your intention. And I think it goes down to anything, whether it's with anger, even, one thing that I am also a big proponent of is authenticity. So you hear a lot about people talking about, I'm just being authentic. I'm saying what's on my mind. I'm unfiltered. What you see is what you get. Yes. And there is authenticity that works and authenticity that doesn't work. There's authenticity in that. How do people feel in your authenticity? What are you creating from it? Are you creating inspiration? Are you creating empowerment? Are you creating excitement? What are you creating with it? Are you creating love, joy? Or are you creating disempowerment? Are you authentic at the expense of people? Are you putting people down? Do people feel not encouraged, discouraged in the presence of your authenticity? Do people feel,
it makes you think about
right?
Are you being authentic on me?
Right.
Don't put your authentic, don't be angry on people. Don't be authentic on people in that way. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really about where you channel it at the end of the day. There's no good or bad. It's about what are you going to take and create with it?
Yeah, when you say this here, because I so we spent some time specifically on anger, but as you were talking here, I'm like it would behoove us to make sure we're looking at this honestly from like a whatever spectrum. I don't think of joy as an emotion, but but it also works in this context here, right? So joy to me is one of the things that I bring to the table. Almost everything I do, I can't help but be joyful about it. But there was a time where there was toxic joyfulness. It was like someone was going through an issue, and I'm like, well, just look at the bright side. It's like, no, right now grief and sadness is important. It's an important part of this process here, and you don't have to take away joy. Doesn't mean joy can't live in that, right? But let's as we're going through the joyful process, let's all there's a way to be joyful in grief. It doesn't have to push the other thing out, right? And I when I think about that would be me being joyful on people, right? And finding that toxic positivity where it's just let's look at the bright side. Sometimes just be real with it. Be real with it. You wanted something, it didn't work out. Enjoy that you went for it, but also enjoy that it feels crappy, right now, and give yourself the chance to experience all that without pushing it all out there. I felt it was important to bring in not just anger, because it works in so many different ways. I'm thinking about
Yes, yeah.
disgust right now. I'm thinking about all the Inside Out like characters.
Yeah,
You know?
every emotion. It goes for every single emotion. I love that you brought out joy, because one thing that is such a detriment to so many people, businesses, you think about, it can really apply to any space, is when we have forced optimism. It is actually a downfall to not be willing to look at what is and acknowledge the situation and what is the emotions, the natural emotions, and that come with it. Because often you'll hear, there's people that I've coached, people that I've met before, where they can look at a house burning down and they're like, it's fine, it's great. And it's like this forced optimism of like, let's ignore this and make it rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. And that's what happens actually in a lot of businesses too, because they'll just say, everything is great. No, there is a time and place to look at things and acknowledge it's not so great right now. There is a lot that isn't working right now. There's a lot of sadness in this specific situation. Like you said, there's maybe grief that's happening. There is a sense of loss. There is a sense of disappointment. It's so important to acknowledge that as well. I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to see something for what is and to give yourself space to actually acknowledge what's there. Because if you don't face it, there's no way that you can move forward from it. There's no way that you can improve. There's no way that you can grow without acknowledging where you're at. There is so much power to that. There's so much courage that it takes to be in that space of saying, acknowledging, yeah, my business isn't working right now. My relationship isn't working right now. My health isn't working right now. It's okay to be in that space and give yourself time and space to be able to feel your feelings. It's so important. It's kind of like you think about a volcano, right? You think about how it erupts. When you are pushing down emotions, when you are creating a false sense of positivity or a false sense of realism of what's actually happening, it doesn't go anywhere. Like the volcano doesn't go underground and dissipate. It's the same thing with what happens in our life. It's kind of like it will continue to come up until we allow it to fully be expressed. And if we don't give space for that, it ends up being like a volcano. It's kind of also same thing as like shaking a soda bottle. It explodes at some point. And that's why it becomes so pent up to a place where now it's not healthy. Now it's expressed in a way where it feels uncontrolled. It feels in a way where it's disruptive, not just disruptive, but destructive. And it's because we haven't given ourselves space to acknowledge things for where they're at, to not make it wrong, to allow ourselves to be human beings. We're human beings, for God's sake, not human doings. We have feelings. You look at a baby, look at my 6-month-old son. He is happy when he wants to be happy. He is sad when he is sad. And the next moment he's angry and then he's joyful. Is it wrong? No, it's just authentically what he's feeling in the moment. And because he allows himself to feel it, he also is able to move forward with it. He allowed himself to be angry and he expressed it. And the next thing you know, he's happy because he got it out of his system. But as we become older and older and we become adults and we kind of move through these different phases of our life, we start making certain things good or bad, right or wrong. And we start telling ourselves certain things are not acceptable. And we start putting ourselves, these filters on ourselves. But really, it stops us from being able to experience the full expression of ourselves. And also, it stops us from being able to receive the gifts that come from the full expression and acknowledgement for all the things that are presented to us in life. So, to what you said, I think it's really important to really pause and be able to give ourselves that space to be able to see what is, but then also give ourselves space to know that we also have a choice for where we want to go with it.
So I'm going to take you up on that there. Like we are right now at like the top of the tide that we have come. We actually gone a few minutes past where we said we were going to be at. I'd love to give us a little bit of time to kind of bring ourselves here and like ground ourselves with like what we want to leave out there. But if you need to take off right now, let me know and we'll just end this right now. Do you have a few minutes to just have us like wrap us up together?
Probably like a minute or two.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's do this here. Thank you. Right. I think this is important, especially as outliers, because we tend to have gotten to a place of success by showing up in the ways that other people might expect us to show up, and eventually like finding our own versions of the volcano and pushing things down. Right. This part of the conversation was just allowing your outlier to like to just be, and to give room for every part of you, so that like that has a chance to like, but know that with that comes like some responsibility and some work to be able to access and leverage each of it, right? Paul, from our standpoint here, I'd love for you to just do two things here. One, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing here. Like, thanks for bringing your passion all the way through. It reminds me of the Hulk in Marvel movies. He's like, I'm always angry. You want to know my secret? I'm always angry. What's one way that if anyone's interested in continuing the conversation, if someone's like, hey, I could really use disruption in my life or in my business right now, like, what's the best way for them to continue the conversation?
Yeah, they can, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this space with you and have this conversation. It was, time just flew by. I was having so much fun. They can find me on my website, yesican.com. So yesikan.com. It's the handle that they can find me as well on Instagram is yes Paul can, or they can find my podcast as well, which is the Yes I Can podcast, which is on all your different podcast platforms. So some different areas you can find me, but happy to connect with anyone that wants to have a conversation about it.
Awesome. And then the last thing I want to ask here is, I like to leave, it's called a time capsule. What's a message that you'd love to leave for your future self in this present moment? So the Paul right now who's talking to his future self, what's a message that your future Paul is going to need to hear?
That's a great question. I think that the message that I would want to send is stop and pause and look around, because you already have everything you need to live your best life. Everything else is just cherry on top of the cake.
Oh, we'll leave it at that. That message is for you there. It's my gift to every person that comes on here, just to like leave a little message for yourself. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being real. Thanks for living this life and make sure that we didn't just like gloss over the reality of what it takes to actually show up as you and own that in a really powerful way in the world. I wish you all the best. I'm really grateful that we had this conversation.
Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it.
We're just getting started. Take 10 seconds to think about your greatest insight from today's conversation. And if you're ready to go and bring this to a deeper, more applicable level for you, come and join us in an upcoming masterclass. Go to outliersEdge.com/masterclass to be coached live and to bring your aspirations, your goals, and your challenges and have them handled in real time. This is high flame, high impact, high transformation. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass and come experience your next level of leadership.